Hello, good morning, still for 1 minute, and welcome to PMQs with Graham Hughes. They're still yakking away. We've got Bridget Phillipson, who's a bit of a TERF. We don't like her. She's the Minister for Women and Equality, so I don't know why they'll make a TERF the Minister for Women, because TERFs really do hate women. They want to make things very difficult for women for some fucked up reason, which I am yet to ascertain. So we'll head over to the House in a moment. Claire Couhino is standing on her feet at the moment, talking about women's rights. I don't know what she's talking about. She's probably talking about being horrible to trans people. And here comes Kemi Badenoch coming up the aisle there, but not like a bride, like a, I don't know, Bride of Frankenstein. What else do we need to do? We need to sort out this chat window so it's positioned correctly so you don't see that nonsense at the bottom. There you go, done that now. No more nonsense at the bottom. That's good. And Robot King says, hi guys. Hello, Robot King. And hello, Gallifreyan Ren. And hello, Andrew Ray. And Vedetta 9000. So here we go.
There is a massive problem with childcare for mothers doing PhDs. Even if you are fully funded for your university research, essentially by the government, you will not be eligible for free childcare hours. This affects both parents. Yeah. The average PhD stipend is just £15,000 a year, but the average nursery place is £12,500 a year. Will the Minister look into this?
Mr.
Possibly.
Speaker, I'd be happy to discuss this further with my honourable friend. We are committed to reviewing childcare support and making sure it is...
Committed to reviewing. Okay, they haven't started yet. Look at this. I'm on time for once, and they're bloody late. I don't know. Hello all. I'm going to subject myself to PMQs. I can't think of a better place to do it. Oh, thank you very much, SG. We'll head back over. Here we go. Before we come to
Prime
PMQs.
Minister's questions, Sarah Alday.
Oh, normally he says before we come to PMQs.
Prime Minister.
Sarah.
Mr. Speaker, the whole House will join me in sending our deepest sympathy and condolences to the family and loved ones of Lance Corporal George Hooley of the Parachute Regiment, who died yesterday in Ukraine. Lance Corporal Hooley was injured in a tragic accident away from the front lines while observing Ukrainian forces testing a new defensive capability. His life was full of courage and determination. He served our country with honour and distinction around the world in the cause of freedom and democracy, including as part of the small number of British personnel in Ukraine. Yeah. Mr. Speaker, I place his name on record today to express our gratitude and respect, and to affirm that his service will never be forgotten. Yeah. Mr. Speaker, on Monday I hosted President Zelensky, President Macron and Chancellor Merz in Downing Street. We must redouble our efforts. The UK, Europe and our allies will stand shoulder to shoulder with Ukraine, stand up to Putin's aggression and work to deliver a just and lasting
Deliver. He said deliver. He already said deliver.
Mr. Speaker, this morning I had meetings with ministerial colleagues and others. In addition to my duties in this House,
my friend.
I shall have further such meetings later today.
Sarah Alday.
Meetings.
Mr. Speaker, a couple in my constituency fled persecution from the Egyptian authorities, who accused them of being traitors and terrorists due to their work as professional journalists. They gained refugee status here in 2021 and are now 3 months away from being eligible for indefinite leave to remain. The UK is their home, but their stability and family life are being threatened by changes in government policy. I'm concerned that the government has lost sight of the real-life impact that these changes will have on working families living here legally, and with details of transitional arrangements still under consultation, can the Prime Minister provide clarity regarding the transitional support available to families already on the pathway to indefinite leave to remain? Thank you.
Well, can I say this country will always be compassionate in relation to refugees and comply with our full obligations under the various conventions. It is important that we address some of the challenges we face at the moment, but we mustn't lose sight that we've always been a compassionate country that welcomes refugees to our shores.
Rachel Maskell.
Mr. Speaker, while the last government was indifferent to child poverty, this government's driving mission must be to eradicate child poverty, and the strategy is a first step on that path. Over the first 1,001 critical days in pregnancy and early years, poverty contributes to malnourished babies, developmental delay, hypothermia and poor life outcomes. This is unacceptable. So will the Prime Minister lift pregnant women and babies out of poverty in York and across the country in this Parliament and ensure that we relieve poverty over the first 1,001 critical days?
Can I thank her for raising this? And I'm proud that babies born today will have a better start in life thanks to our decisions. Mr. Speaker, I am particularly concerned by maternity services, and that's why we've commissioned a review so every mother is heard, gets proper care at what should be a special time, and currently too many are failed. We're funding healthy babies services in 75 of the most deprived areas, and we've taken action to save parents up to £500 a year on infant formula. It is a moral mission of this government to lift children out of poverty, and we intend to do so. The Leader of the Opposition thinks that maternity pay is excessive and would go back to the failment that puts hundreds of thousands of children into poverty.
Kemi Badenoch, the Leader of the Opposition.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. And can I echo the sentiments of the Prime Minister? The thoughts of the whole House will rightly be with the family of Lance Corporal Hooley, who tragically died supporting Ukraine in her fight for freedom. Can the right honourable gentleman tell the House why are his own MPs describing him as a caretaker Prime Minister?
Mr. Speaker, my own MPs are very proud we've just passed a budget which protected our public services and our NHS. No austerity which brought our NHS to the ground. We've created the conditions for economic stability with the headroom we need. And Mr. Speaker, we're concentrating on the single most important issue for families up and down the country, which is the cost of living, by taking £150 off their energy bills. That's in addition to the £150 for the 6 million of the poorest household. We're concentrating on what matters to the country. She's trying to save her job.
Mr. Speaker, let me answer the question for the Prime Minister. He's being called a caretaker because everyone can see that he's lost control of his party. And this lot, they're all so busy trying to replace him.
Order. Sorry. Can I just say the same people are making the same noises they made last week? I did say last week it wasn't the right time. I wouldn't do it this week. So please, let's not carry on with the way we left it last week. Kemi Badenoch.
He's probably weird,
they can
isn't
make
he?
as much noise as they like. We all know that this lot are so busy trying to replace him that they've taken their eyes off the ball.
Your eyes on your notes.
Let's start, Mr. Speaker. Wait for it. Let's start with the Energy Secretary, who wants to recycle himself as leader. He said he'd cut families' energy bills by £300. Can the Prime Minister tell the House how much have energy bills fallen by since the election?
Well, Mr. Speaker, I'm very pleased to say we're taking £150 off energy bills. I can also tell her that that's on top of the £150 we've taken off last year for the 3 million poorest families, now for 6 million poorest families. Mr. Speaker, she talks about leaving. The problem for us, last week,
Mr. May, I've told this side. I'll now tell this side. We don't need the pantomime auditions anymore, please.
Mr. Speaker, last week I pointed out that 3 of her ex-MPs went to reform. That included the former Deputy Chairman, Jonathan Gullis. He liked to think of himself as a straight talker. He said they're finished and they've lost the trust of the British people. In total, Mr. Speaker, 21 ex-Tory MPs have now left for reform. The real question, Mr. Speaker, is who's next? We can all see the Shadow Justice Secretary twitching after his come and get me plea from the member of Clacton. Mr. Speaker, we need no lessons from them.
Oh, that's almost not taking lectures.
I asked him about energy bills. He could power the national grid on all of that hot air. He promised to cut energy bills by £300. Energy bills have risen by £187.
This is not doing
Let's look
anything.
at someone else who's making a mess. Let's look at the Education Secretary. Ah, there she is. Labour pledged to recruit 6,500 more teachers. So can the Prime Minister tell the House how many extra teachers are there since she became Education Secretary?
More than when they left office. I'm very proud to say so. We're in an upward trajectory. Oh, Mr. Speaker.
I think that counts as 14 years, doesn't it?
Doesn't
that
service
14
on
years?
its knees. They left our schools in a mess. They left our economy absolutely broken. They should be utterly ashamed of their record in service.
In service? They never did a service.
Mr. Speaker, there are now 400 fewer teachers since she came into office. She's shaking her head. It's on the DFE website. Does she not check it once in a while? I can understand that the Right Honourable Lady is angry. We're all angry at the mess she's making. The Prime Minister doesn't know what's going on in energy. He doesn't know what's going on in education. Does he know anything about what's going on in the Home Office? Last year, the Prime Minister promised to recruit 13,000 more police officers. How's that going?
Prime Minister.
3,000 more by the end of March, and we're rising on police numbers. Mr. Speaker, they left the Home Office. The criminal justice system is utterly broken. Sir Brian Leveson has said on that. They lost control of our borders. They lost control of every single department. And she's obviously spent the morning rehearsing for the Liz Truss show. She's probably going to be the guest star next week. Both of them talking about how Liz Truss was 100% right. But what Liz Truss said was the Conservatives need to take... No, they don't want to hear it. The Conservatives need to take responsibility. The Conservatives need to take responsibility for their 14 years of failure. That was Liz Truss, their former leader. So perhaps she'll heed that, get up and say sorry.
Wrong again. I asked him how many police officers. There are now 1,300 fewer officers than at the election. So, Mr. Speaker, I don't know if the Home Secretary wants his job, but I do read that she's having conversations with Tony Blair because he's already given up on the Prime Minister. Why don't we talk about the Health Secretary? Let's see how he's doing. We do know he
At least she's mixing up the questions this week instead of asking the same one 6 times.
End the doctor strikes. So can the Prime Minister tell the House how many appointments have been lost to strike action
is making
since
a
last
statement
July?
about the strikes after
Mr.
this.
Speaker, they left the NHS an absolute mess, with the highest waiting lists on record and the lowest confidence in the NHS ever. The Health Secretary said he would do 2 million extra appointments. He hasn't done 2 or 3 or 4. He's done 5 million extra appointments. That is because we invested in the NHS. What did they do? Having broken it, they voted against that investment. They should hang their heads in shame.
Mr. Speaker, I asked him how many appointments have been lost to strike action. He doesn't know. Let me tell him. We have lost 93,000 appointments to strikes since the Health Secretary gave doctors a massive pay rise. It's the truth. I know they wouldn't know the truth if it punched them in the face, but I'm telling them the truth. It is no wonder that we read this morning that the former Deputy Prime Minister has said about the Health Secretary she'd rather stick pins in her eyes than be on his golden ticket. And Mr. Speaker, the Prime Minister congratulates himself on 5 million extra appointments. In our last year of office, we delivered 6.5 million extra appointments.
What?
Under Labour, Mr. Speaker, everything is getting worse. Jobs, bills, police numbers, teacher numbers, everything is getting worse. The Cabinet should be doing their own jobs. What are they doing? They're trying to compete for the caretaker's job. The only person who doesn't want the Prime Minister's job is the Chancellor. She's just trying to cling on to her own. Isn't it time, Mr. Speaker, that the Prime Minister admits that Labour isn't working?
Mr. Speaker, she's living proof you can say whatever you like when nobody is listening to anything you have to say. There's absolutely no substance. She's no credibility on the economy. She still believes that Liz Truss was 100% right.
He's done it. He's done it. He's opened up the emergency trust. He's actually mentioned it twice.
No credibility on foreign policy. She complains about trade deals she tried to get and we got. She says that we should stay at home and not attend NATO or the G7. On issue after issue, she's clinging on to reform. That's not leadership, it's weakness. No wonder so many are leaving her party. They know there's absolutely no reason to stay.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Thousands of families are moving into new estates only to discover that basic infrastructure, roads, drains and sewers remain in limbo, unadopted by public authorities. In mid-Cheshire alone, 4,700 households, more than 12% of all properties in the constituency, face this uncertainty with no guarantee over maintenance, safety and future costs, often years after developers have walked away. Can the Prime Minister say what steps he will take to make adoption timely and enforceable so homeowners are not left carrying the burden of unfinished infrastructure?
Well, I thank him for raising this serious issue for his constituents and over 1.7 million homeowners across the country who are left at the mercy of unfair costs and poor management. I can confirm we're consulting on reforming the system to reduce private management of these estates and to protect more homeowners from unfair charges. That's a vital part of our leasehold reforms to protect homeowners from high cost and make sure everyone has the amenities that they need.
Sir Ed Davey, Leader of the Liberal Democrats.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Can I join the Prime Minister in offering our condolences to the family and friends of Lance Corporal George Hooley, who died on duty in Ukraine? Our thoughts and prayers are with them. Can I congratulate Glastonbury's Lando Norris on becoming the 11th British driver to win the Formula One World Championship, and also everyone at McLaren's in Woking who powered him to the title. Mr. Speaker, President Trump's new national security strategy is a deeply alarming document.
Yes.
Quite apart from the irony of President Trump accusing others of trampling on basic principles of democracy, it repeats far-right tropes of civilizational erasure and threatens that the US government will cultivate resistance in Europe. No wonder Vladimir Putin has welcomed that strategy. So will the Prime Minister pick up the phone and make it clear to President Trump that any attempts to interfere with our democracy are totally unacceptable?
Can I join him in congratulating Lando for the incredible win? I went down to Woking on Monday to see some of the team at McLaren, and they were all wearing the pride that brought with them. On the question of Europe and President Trump's comments, what I see is a strong Europe, united behind Ukraine and united behind our long-standing values of freedom and democracy, and I will always stand up for those values and those freedoms.
Ed Davey.
Mr. Speaker, I didn't hear about standing up to President Trump.
Yeah.
And if we're going to stand up to President Trump, we do need to strengthen our ties with Europe, not just on defence, but on the economy too. And the truth is, this government will not succeed unless it gets our economy growing strongly again. And the best way to do that is a customs union with Europe. The Chief Economic Advisor knows it. The Deputy Prime Minister knows it. And yesterday, the Labour chair of the Treasury Select Committee showed she knows it too when she backed our bill.
He knows it.
Does the Prime Minister fear that if he keeps opposing a customs union, in 12 months' time, he will not be standing there?
Mr. Speaker, we have got a close relationship with the EU through our reset earlier this year. And yes, I do want a closer relationship than the one we've got at the moment. We are moving towards that. We do have manifesto commitments on issues such as single market, customs union and freedom of movement. But I would gently point this out, that having now done significant trade deals with other countries, including the US and India, which are hugely important to the JLR workforce.
0.0001% of our GDP. It is
not now sensible to unravel what is effectively the best deal with the US that any country has got.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Working in NHS, I saw the consequences of Tory and...
Sorry, I'm going to have to stop it there just to point out to everyone that trade with the US is 17% of all our trade. Trade with the EU is over 50%. So yes, it's worth it. It's definitely worth it.
Investment in our health service. I welcome the progress under this Labour government, falling waiting list, higher patient satisfaction with the general practice, and the rollout of neighbourhood health centres announced in the budget. I thank the frontline staff, including in mental health and community services, for all their hard work, and I am especially grateful to all the staff at the William Harvey Hospital in Nashford who turned up to work during the last BMA-led resident doctor strike and ensured that so many planned appointments went ahead. With rising hospital admissions because of flu and increased demand on A&E services, does the Prime Minister agree that the BMA should call off their next planned strike and instead work with the government to find a solution?
Well, Mr. Speaker is right. Waiting lists are falling with over 5 million extra appointments. More people are being seen within 18 weeks, and we've hired 2,600 new GPs. That's real progress thanks to the hard work of NHS staff, backed by our record investment. I do think the strikes are unjustified and they threaten that hard-won progress, and the focus should always be on patients.
Ms Savile Roberts.
He just said, the Prime Minister, he wanted a closer relationship with Europe, but then referenced the Labour Party manifesto. Wales has been hardest hit by Brexit. Exports are down by a third.
But Wales voted for Brexit.
That the only solution to the chaos imposed by Brexit is to rejoin the customs union and the single market, or is he too afraid
do that.
of what his party might say?
Do that. Liz Savile Roberts, you're absolutely on the money.
I went to Solihull to see the JLR workforce before we got the deal with President Trump. They were worried sick that they were going to lose their jobs, and that would be a loss for them, their families and their communities. I took the call from President Trump when we got the deal in Solihull in JLR, so the first people I could tell were the workforce, who knew very well that that meant their jobs were
phone call weirdness.
We've also just done a deal on pharma, which is the first of its kind in the world and the best of its kind in the world. It is not sensible or fair to the JLR workforce or to the pharma sector to say, having achieved those things now, we should unravel them by discussion about a customs union. I just don't think it's a sensible way to take our country forward.
Justine.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Of the almost 1 million young people not in education, employment or training, hundreds of thousands are disconnected from the system entirely. Youth workers have a unique ability to bridge young people into support. I wouldn't be stood here today if I hadn't been supported by a youth worker called Russell when I dropped out of school.
Thanks, Ross.
So will the Prime Minister use the National Youth Strategy to deliver a shared long-term vision for young people's outcomes, with good work as a central pillar and youth workers and trusted adults at its heart?
Thank him for his question. The party officer presided over a lost decade for our young people. I'm determined to support every young person to reach their potential. That's why we're delivering the first national youth strategy for 15 years to transform youth services, backed by over £500 million. Mr. Speaker, that means more youth workers, more youth centres, and a network of 50 young people.
Nick, I'm feeling that.
That's on top of our youth job guarantee and our plan to create 50,000 more apprenticeships. We're building a Britain for the next generation.
Mr. Speaker, over the coming weeks, millions of people from across the country will be visiting their local church. Churches are the custodians of our history and do enormous good. But in January, the government announced a £19 million cut to the listed places of worship grant, as well as putting a cap on the repair cost. This cut puts thousands of local churches at risk. And I say to the Prime Minister, if we lose our churches, we lose the very soul and essence of our communities. So as we go into Christmas, will the Prime Minister do the right thing? He has 10 at risk in his own constituency. Will he reconsider this policy so that we can save our churches?
Mr. Speaker, we support our churches and the work that those within our churches do, particularly in the lead up to Christmas, and I've got a reception for them in Downing Street this very afternoon.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Before May's election, Reform in Kent promised that they would improve services and cut taxes. Instead, vital services to older people and those with a mental health condition provided by great organisations like Imago and Involve is to be cut, and taxes are going up. Would the Prime Minister agree with me on two things? That given the additional money for the county through the Fair Funding Review, it's beyond belief that Kent are cutting services that vulnerable people rely on, and that their so-called Doge unit that we were told would eliminate waste actually stands for deluded, overconfident, gormless and embarrassing.
Well, it sums up very well how his community...
You're gormless, sir. You have no gorms.
Whilst the member for Clacton is making excuses about his behaviour at school,
look at the disgusting
look at what his
clown.
party are doing across the country. Chaos in Kent. In Hampshire, their mayoral candidate says the Deputy Prime Minister, a black British man born in this country, should go back to the Caribbean. In Staffordshire, Reform's leader has been exposed as a white supremacist. It's not a coincidence, Mr. Speaker, because chaos and division is a member of Clacton's life work.
We're a hobos.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. In Bath, parents of children with special educational needs,
it's Viva Hobhouse.
very complex
Hi, Viva.
needs, are crying out for special school
Once did
places.
a Three Blokes in the Pub
Funding to build
episode
a
with her.
brand new special school at that Culver Hayside in Bath was secured, but the government has frozen the funding for almost 18 months without any explanation, leaving
Gormless
many
and
families in
embarrassing,
the
we
lurch.
fuck slogan.
How
Yeah,
much longer do
yeah.
families and children with special educational needs have to wait for this vital new school?
Well, I thank you for raising this, and we are working closely with local authorities on plans for special and alternative provision-free schools. We are keen to progress this, and I'll make sure that ministers update her in her particular case. But we are determined to fix the SEND system that fails parents and fails children, and that's why we've launched a national conversation to put families at the heart of the lasting reform. We've already put money into extra new places, a language support, and Best Start family hubs being rolled out across every area from April.
Christine Sullivan.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. In Blackburn, West Lothian, St Kentigern's Academy was part demolished due to rack and is being rebuilt, costing £35 million. West Lothian Council found £20 million from its own stretched budget, but despite repeated pleas to the Scottish Cabinet Secretary for Education, who called it the most deserving case, funding has not been delivered. Will the Prime Minister back my call for the Scottish Government to urgently fund the £15 million shortfall and raise it with the First Minister in their next meeting?
Well, can I thank her, because she's fought for her constituents on this issue for years, and meanwhile decades of SNP cuts and broken promises have left schools crumbling. Mr. Speaker, what a contrast. By the end of this Parliament, every school in England will either be rack-free or we will rebuild them entirely. We delivered the largest settlement for the Scottish Government in the history of devolution. So the question for the SNP is, after decades of decline, what is their excuse?
Dr. Luke Evans.
Yeah, look at this.
Mr. Speaker, I feel for the Prime Minister.
Dr. Luke.
It must be tough wherever he goes in the UK because of his policies. A pub, higher taxes. A restaurant, higher taxes. A cafe, higher taxes. A farm, higher taxes. A GP, higher taxes. A care home, higher taxes. A hospice, higher taxes. So, Mr. Speaker, is this the reason the Prime Minister chooses to spend so much time out of this country?
What a load of nonsense. Mr. Speaker, we are at a critical stage in progress in Ukraine that will affect Ukraine's sovereignty, the whole of Europe, and the values that we hold dear. We are part of one of the leading countries to strengthen NATO at a vital time for defence and security in Europe. And we've secured trade deals that they tried for years to achieve, but never did because of our international engagement. And we've got better relations with the EU, all of which is good for our country. Ridiculous question.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. The video games company Rockstar in my constituency
Theft
last
Auto.
month fired 31 employees. without providing evidence or union representation. The IWGB alleges union busting. Having met Rockstar, they failed to reassure me they are following employment law, and I share concerns about union busting. Given this government is responsible for the biggest increase in workers' rights in a generation, does the Prime Minister agree all companies, regardless of profit size, must follow UK employment law?
Yes.
And all workers have the right to join a union?
Yes.
Well, it's a deeply concerning case.
They can make it automatic that you join a union and
join
opt
a
out.
trade union, and we're determined to strengthen workers' rights and ensure they don't face unfair consequences for being part of a union. Ministers will look into the particular case that he raises and keep him updated.
Blake Stevens.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Digital ID is intrusive and fundamentally un-British. The government has no mandate for it. No sensible person believes it will tackle illegal immigration or illegal working. It's an attack on our open society and a staggering waste of taxpayers' money, isn't it?
Digital ID has huge benefits, as many countries in Europe are already demonstrating. And where they failed on our borders, we're taking control of our borders, and I'm proud that we're doing so.
Jenny Riddle-Carpenter.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, the Prime Minister will know that SEND is in crisis across the country, but it's in particular crisis in Suffolk, where the County Council is in special measures for its failings. I'm delighted that the government has listened to one of my asks, which is to have a national conversation about SEND, so parents, young people and their advocates can have their voices heard. Will the Prime Minister back my call to make sure that we deliver the funding for the former Saxmundham Set School in Saxmundham that closed its doors for the last time in 2024?
Can I thank her? I know she's a dedicated campaigner on this issue, and I'll make sure ministers update her on the latest progress in her constituency. Our ambition is to make sure all children with SEND have access to the right support. That's why we're working closely with local authorities to deliver places where they're needed most.
Sarah Bull.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. This government is always talking about the fair choices that it has made. But is it a fair choice to balloon the benefits bill? Is it a fair choice to introduce an unfunded and unwanted digital ID that will cost the public billions? And is it a fair choice to increase taxes on working people when the promise was not to? The answer, Mr. Speaker, is no. So can I ask the Prime Minister to consider one final... So can I ask the Prime Minister to give one final fair choice, thinking of food security and to avoid devastation for families across the country and reverse the family farm tax?
Mr. Speaker, welfare ballooned on their watch. When the shadow chancellor was responsible for welfare.
That's Sarah Bull there, privately educated, of course. She went to Stamford High School, which is an independent private school for girls in Stamford, Lincolnshire. There you go.
It ballooned by £33 billion.
Balloons! Talking of balloons, here's Wes Streeting.
Said they added £16 billion to that. We'll take no lecture from them on the economy.
Oh, they aren't taking lectures! They're not taking lectures! They are not taking lectures.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. There's no denying that this government inherited a crisis in our criminal courts, with the number of cases waiting to be tried growing every single day. So if the Justice Secretary plan to do away with jury trials in some cases, not all, in some cases, is really about addressing the backlog and getting the position to something manageable, then why isn't there a sunset clause? And why has that been ruled out?
Ooh, good question.
He's absolutely right to draw attention to the crisis in our courts. Yes, he says. Sir Brian Leveson is one of our most respected senior judges. He did an independent report, and he made clear that we risk, in his words, total collapse of the criminal justice system.
Total collapse in my heart. And that was them clips.
They're chuntering that. That is what they left. A system near total collapse. where victims of sexual violence and rape wait years to get justice. That is not justice, that is victims failed. I can reassure him, and I know he feels very strongly on this, that juries will remain a cornerstone of our justice system for the most serious cases.
Mr Robertson, I don't want shouting like that again. Do we understand each other? Okay. Right. That completes Prime Minister's questions.
Okay.
Yeah.
We're going to stick around because Wes Streeting is going to make a statement on the doctor's strike. And also, you know, I like hanging out. I like hanging out with you. You're a good bunch. You're a good bunch, you know, watching this. Just some of the things that people said. So I actually thought that Kemi Badenoch, she was all right today, but she faces that big problem of anything she moans at the Labour government about. He just turns around, Keir Starmer, the Prime Minister, just turns around and says, well, you know, if it wasn't for you leaving the economy up the shit creek without a paddle, then we wouldn't be in this situation if you hadn't left the NHS, the education, infrastructure, defence, you know, whatever it is. You fucked it all up. We're trying to fix it. It's taken a bit longer than we thought it was going to because you fucked it up that badly. So it just gives an excuse, doesn't it? It gives an excuse. Anyway, so here we go.
Mr. Speaker, I cannot accept his attempt to use the communities in Westminster and the city
I'm not
as a
taking
political
lectures.
football. And since before I was elected, I've campaigned for more local police officers and specialist outreach workers to tackle the very specific issues we're facing locally. And following my campaigning, the government has invested an additional £12 million into Westminster.
I think we got the message. You're absolutely right with the first part. No, you don't go into full detail.
Wayne's gone to wrestle something.
It's about somebody coming into another person's constituency. The answer is clear. Whichever side of the House are on, whichever party you might represent, you have to allow the Member of Parliament notice that you are coming in. We've had it before. We don't need it. We're quite a long way for general election. So I am disappointed. You should always be informed of somebody coming in. Please, respect each other. Point forward, John Mackey.
Is that a fucker?
I don't like doing this, Mr. Speaker, but I have to. I wrote on behalf of several members to the Secretary of State for Justice last Wednesday.
Jesus, here we go.
It is in relation to the hunger strike that's taken place within our prisons at the moment by Palestine Action prisoners, some of whom now have been
Palestine Action
hospitalised.
prisoners. Oh
we wrote
God.
simply asking for a meeting with the Secretary of State. We've not received any response. I informed his office yesterday I'd be raising a point of order. We gave it another day. We still haven't had a response to that letter. This is a matter of urgency.
So
and
you
I
wrote
would
a
have
letter?
expected at least the courtesy of some response, even if he's not willing to meet us.
Can I first of all say, I thank the Honourable Member for raising his point. I always expect ministers to take seriously correspondence from members whichever side of the House. It is totally unacceptable. Not if I can't make a meeting happen, but I do expect people's correspondence to be dealt with quickly and effectively. What I would say is the Treasury bench, I hope, will be listening very carefully, and I hope that we'll make contact with the Honourable.
I mean, this is a serious matter. John McDonnell fucks me off. That's another story. But, like, he's basically complaining about not getting a response. Is this the Speaker's deal? I mean, I don't know.
Remember, it is, as I said, not acceptable. I'm getting more and more people complaining about ministerial correspondence. We even heard of one that took 12 months. It's not good enough. It's not acceptable. The ministerial teams need to get their act together and make sure members of Parliament, quite rightly, get a reply timely. Jeremy Corbyn.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, and I thank you for what you just said in response to the point of order from the member for Hayes and Harlington. Is there any way that you could ensure that a minister comes to this House to give a statement about the hunger strikers in the prison? I visited one of them yesterday, and I am deeply concerned about what is going on in our prisons, where people are being held for an inordinate length of time on remand when they are being delayed their access to justice.
I cannot guarantee I'm not responsible for what goes on within this chamber. I'm here to keep good order. What I would say is, quite rightly, as another senior member raising a point of order, the Treasury
why are they asking the Speaker about this?
There are different ways, and you both know how to do it, in order to ensure that this is brought to the attention of the chamber. I will leave that with
don't
you, knowing
understand
with the
this.
experience between you. I'd hate to add up how many years, but I think between you, you know the answer to the question.
Yeah, exactly.
Right.
I honestly, I'm baffled by this. Like, this is like a sub getting up from the bench in a match and going up to the referee and saying, "Hey, they should put me up there to play," and the referee's like, "It's got nothing to do with me, mate. Go and talk to the manager."
Point for Bob Blackman.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I've looked through the agenda up until Christmas, and it appears that there is no opportunity for members to question either the police settlement or the local government settlement. Normally, there is a debate held, or at least a statement given on the floor of the House about both of these, so that members are able to question those. I understand that it seems to be the government's intention to put a written ministerial statement about this on the last day of Parliament, not giving us an opportunity to challenge. Given that local authorities are finalising their budget.
Sorry, is this the same party that fucking prorogued Parliament to not give it an opportunity to stop Brexit?
To actually come forward with at least a statement.
Can I just say, quite rightly, the point has been raised. Once again, I expect the Treasury bench to have taken it over. What I would say, as I said previously, there are other mechanisms that you may wish to consider using. I could see the shock horror of the opposition chief whip when you said it. You know, I was absolutely overwhelmed by the shock that came out. But allowing that to rest, I do take seriously. This House should hear it. A WMS is not the answer on something so serious. So let me say, Treasury bench should have heard it. We shouldn't shy away from this House. In fact, we should always come to the House first. I can't say it more than what I do. At some point, I would suggest once again that the ministerial code needs to be changed if people aren't going to take it seriously. Right, on that, we will now lead it. We've now got presentation of bill. Sarah Dyke.
Okay, well, this is just
Reindeer
procedural shit.
licensing for exhibition bill.
Okay, I don't care. What, reindeer licensing for exhibition? I don't know. Sorry, I thought Wes Streeting was going to make a statement about the strikes, but he didn't. So, you know, that's what I was told by the internet. See, can't trust the internet. Can't trust people. They voted for the Nazis and they buy Coldplay records. Can't trust people. It's parliamentary procedure. So yes, the Speaker. I can understand. Okay, so Diz, I can understand Corbyn because he's an independent, but McDonnell's still part of Labour. He's still part of the party in charge. I know he's a backbench MP. He's not part of the government, but I don't know. I understand what Kemi's saying about it's getting it on the record, getting it enhanced, so that you know, they can point to it and say, "Oh, you've got to respond when we write letters about this stuff." And to be fair to John McDonnell and to Jeremy Corbyn, I mean, yeah, it's a bit shit that they didn't even fucking write to them to say we're not going to do anything. But yeah, I just. Specifically with Palestine Action, I don't know what the fuck they want. I don't know what they want unless it's like... what? They're going on hunger strike, which is horrific. You know, I once went without any food for 6 days. I know what it's like. It's painful. It's horrible. It's traumatic. It's not enjoyable in any way, shape or form, right? It's basically torture. You know what it's like to be hungry, okay? So it's like worse than that. But at the same time, I don't know what they want. Like, what is the UK government going to do that will placate them? They can say, "Oh, we'll bring in sanctions against Israel." It's not going to make any difference to the Gazan people. We can say we'll stop selling weapons to Israel, but that's going to fuck us more than it's going to fuck them. I don't know. I just find it a very extreme reaction to a huge problem in the world. And don't get me wrong, you know, what the genocide that's being committed and being committed in Gaza is horrific. But if it was our government doing it, then I'd understand the hunger strike a bit more. You know, we had hunger strikers during the Troubles in Northern Ireland. I kind of got that because they could directly get the government to do something. They were appealing to the government to do something. In this case, I don't know. But then again, Nazari Radcliffe's husband, he went on hunger strike, didn't he, when she was locked up in Iran? So that was to put pressure on the British to do more to get him to get her out. I don't know. I don't know. I'm a bit perturbed by the whole Palestine action thing because I felt like a lot of people were going out and basically protesting for no reason. Do you know what I mean? Like, not to help the Gazan, the people of Gaza, the Palestinian people, but to, you know, help a British organisation that is going around doing twatty things like spraying paint into a jet fuel engine, so the jet fuel engine has to be dismantled and cleaned and put back together. But also, this footage that's emerged of a Palestinian action activist going out and hitting a female police officer with a fucking sledgehammer. So I don't think it's the best use of our resources. Can I just put it that way? If you are going to go out and protest against what Israel's doing, which I fully support you doing that, you don't need to put that extra layer in to say I'm doing this in support of Palestinian action. No, do it on behalf of Palestine. Cut out the middleman. Cut out the troublemakers in the middle who are actually turning people against your cause, which is a noble cause. And I feel the same way about Just Stop Oil. I think, to be honest with you, if it turned out that Just Stop Oil was funded by the oil companies to piss people off and turn them against doing anything about climate emergency, I wouldn't be surprised. And if it turned out that Israel was paying these clowns from Palestine Action to do the shit that they've done, to make the whole movement that supports Palestinian rights look bad, I wouldn't be surprised. I'd be like, okay, yeah, that makes sense. It wouldn't come as a massive shock. And when you're trying to win the battle of hearts and minds of people, this isn't the way to go about it. It really, really isn't the way to go about it. But you've had discussions, I'm sure you have, with people who are absolutely obsessed with this and trying to come up with a way of getting more people on side for this argument about, Israel being brought to book, and especially Benjamin Netanyahu, the wanted war criminal Benjamin Netanyahu, being brought to book for what he and his government and the IDF have done in Gaza. I mean, you will get so many more people on side if you just went about things differently. I feel this way about a lot of left-wing causes, to be honest with you. I just think, just quit with the fucking stick. Give more carrots. People have got busy lives. They can't make each individual thing the number one thing in their life, or they go mad. Anyway, Dice Stanton, thank you very much for the £5 super chat. I can get my head around people voting Nazi but buying Coldplay records, for fuck's sake. Very good. And also, thank you for triggering the confetti. We got confetti. Only one super chat. It's PMQs. You don't normally get many super chats during PMQs. Let's see what you're saying. What's it really for? The only thing I think of is the police can stop you and ask papers. Andy says maybe they'll tie it to facial recognition so they can track who you are from the cameras. That's not fun, is it? Cumry says, I'm not sure, but I believe it's to protest the proroguing of the courts, change of justice to a panel of judges with regards to the revision of the prescription which was done by the government. Oh, you're talking about getting rid of jury service there? The excuse for the fact that people are being held, remanded in custody for so long is more to do with the fact that there's such a backlog in the legal system. There's like 70,000 cases that need to go through, and the reason for doing this, doing away with jury service for crimes of under 3 years, with the sentence guidelines of under 3 years. A very good point made, actually, I thought, about having a sunset clause in that. I think there should be a sunset clause, because if you're doing it for a specific reason that exists now that might not exist in 5-10 years' time, put a sunset clause in it. If the problem still exists in 5 years' time, do it again. Otherwise, put that sunset clause in. Because the idea that we're going to get rid of jury service for the rest of time because of a problem that we're having now, because of 14 years of Tory underfunding of the justice system, I think is ridiculous. And it was a good point. It was a good point that was made. And then my issue was with the prescription process and evidence presented, not with the actual case itself, says Boltkov. Martin says, you get past hunger about a week and it doesn't register. As long as you've got water, you'll be fine. I barely eat these days, says Martin. It's still not pleasant, mate. I mean, come on. Cumry says, ironically, this is the conflation that was wanted. People are against the prescription of PA as a terrorist group, which takes away from Palestine and reinforces that any support for Palestine is bad. Yeah, but there is a way, I mean... Yeah, I understand the conflation. I understand the issue as well with the government not exactly explaining what it was that Palestine Action did that was so bad that put them onto this list of terrorist groups. But some of the evidence that's come out, especially the one about a police officer a female police officer at that, being attacked with a sledgehammer, that's really disturbing. And I wouldn't want to be supporting or going out and saying I support any group that does that kind of thing. You know, if it turned out that Durham fucking Pokemon group had gone out with fucking sledgehammers and attacked a bunch of police officers, I'll be leaving that group. I would not be going out going, I support the Durham Pokemon group. Do you know what I mean? Do you know what I mean? Not that I play Pokemon anymore because it was bought by the fucking Saudis. Grrr! Anyway, the hunger strike is over the judge who was on the case and called for a revision, him being removed and replaced with a panel of 3 judges, 2 known Zionist sympathizers. But then you got to be difficult. You got to be careful with the word Zionist because it doesn't necessarily mean what you think it means to somebody else. I try not to use that word myself because that gets conflated in itself between the people who think that Israel's got a right to exist, which is most people, and people who think that Israel's got a right to go and invade its neighbor and kill everyone, which is very, very few people. Lots of people, very, very few people. Same name for all of them. And they're 2 very, very different things. Is Badenoch somehow more unlikable in her demeanour than the previous Tory leaders? For me, she might be. Yeah. I don't know. You know, after the election, does anyone remember? Let's go back in time. Just after the election last year, the general election. First PMQs with Keir Starmer as PM and Rishi Sunak as leader of the opposition then. Rishi Sunak asked him a bunch of really good questions, and they were more on the lines of Ed Davey's style of questions. Ed Davey puts really, really good questions to the Prime Minister. They have been workshopped. They've thought exactly the right way to say this and to try and get an answer out of Keir Starmer. They don't always get the answer that they want, or any answer. Particularly, you know, Keir Starmer might, but a lot of times doing these PMQs, right, reviewing them or watching them or whatever, the Keir Starmer will actually go, yeah, okay, we'll look into that. Yeah, okay, we're looking into that. Okay, yeah. Whereas everything from Badenoch is, you're a twat. Why didn't you fuck off? And the next question is, why don't you fuck off? You're a twat. And my next question is, fuck off, you twat? Question mark. The next, and you're like, surely there is a better use of your 6 questions. And when it comes to the questions that she asked today, yes, I think she landed a few blows, but it was all point scoring. It was all political point scoring. Nothing will come of that. Nothing will come of anything that she said, anything that she asked. Whereas when it's to do with the Lib Dems, they sometimes ask questions, when Ed Davey asks questions, or even other members of the Lib Dems like Vera Hobhouse. They will ask questions that actually make a difference, that have an effect, that actually says, oh yeah, okay, we'll have a look at that, or, you know, come and talk to us about this thing, and, you know, we'll work something out. Don't forget, we have all this Punch and Judy politics on the PMQs, right? But then things go to select committees where they go through bills line by line and all that kind of shit, and they're cross-party. So you have Labour, you've also got Plaid Cymru, you've got SNP in there, you've got Lib Dems, you've got Tories, you might even have a fucker or 2. Doubtful there's only 5 of them and they're all too busy getting drunk in the subsidised bars of Parliament. So when you pay tax, some of your tax is going to subsidise the booze for millionaires. Don't forget that. Never forget that when someone complains about having to pay for, I don't know, food for children so they don't starve. The issue I have with Badenoch is she has a big chance of leading a stable government as she has a bigger chance of leading a stable government as Corbyn did. After all, most Tories resent her birthright citizenship. Yes, you're absolutely right. And Robot King says, unfortunately, Badenoch's questions are never going to get into or inform the public. Always point scoring. Yeah. And that's why I think she failed so badly. But there is a part of me that thinks, okay, I like the fact that she's the leader of the Conservatives because she's so shit of a job. She's really shit at the job of being the leader of this party, right? So that's good. Yeah. But now I'm changing my mind a bit. I wish Robert Jenrick wasn't like waiting in the wings because he's going to be just as shit. But could you imagine if the Tories got a sensible leader in, right? Two things, right? One, they might ask sensible questions that bring up really good points and pressure points on Labour that we can all agree on in whether we're on the left or right. That Labour aren't doing enough, they're not being bold enough, they're not going forward enough, they're setting these targets and not meeting the targets and all that kind of stuff, right? Not just political posturing, but actually, driving a narrative of holding Labour to account in a realistic way, right? In a way that actually cuts through, right? But also, the Tories had a decent leader. We'll take votes off reform. But Badenoch's just driving voters away. She's driving former MPs. Jonathan Gullis, the howler monkey, Jonathan Gullis, has left the Tories and he's gone to join Refuck. There's about 27 of these Refuck fuckers now who are ex-Tory MPs or mayors or councillors. In fact, I think when it comes to councillors, it's a lot more. It's like fucking dozens of them. That's why you say scratch a refucker, get a Tory, because they're just the same lot. Jenrick would be cash for questions on steroids. Yeah, so I wish there was someone mildly sensible waiting in the wings of the Tory party. But the problem is, they got rid of anyone sensible in the Tory party in 2019 under Boris Johnson. They all got kicked out. They all lost the whip. They took the whip from Winston Churchill's grandson, for fuck's sake. Yeah. Mel Stride is my preference, but he'll never get elected, said Robert King. It's hard, isn't it? Just trying to pick someone who's not completely horrific. good luck, I guess. Punch and Judy is poorly named. It sent out a bad message from the get-go. I mean, who's called Judy? Fair enough. Who's called Punch? Why would you call your kid Punch? The first thing Refuck will do is Americanize political donations. That's how the right did it in America. Yeah. Well, it was the judges that George W. Bush put into the into the Supreme Court that allowed them to basically fuck everyone in America and everyone in the world with the Citizens United judgment, which came through in about 2011, I think it was, and that's when the cap was taken off. The cap was taken off any of the PACs, political action committees, allowing them to just give billions and billions. And then as soon as that money started rolling in, it attracted gobshites like Trump, who just wanted to feather their own nest and said, yeah, give me loads of money and I'll do this job and you can pay me and, cash for questions, cash for fucking anything, mate. Cash for tariffs. So Cumby says, sincerely, the only way to achieve the change across the island needed, these shared islands, is for the UK to disband and renegotiate its relationship on this isle. Westminster only creates change for the worse. I don't know. I mean, obviously I've got a different view on this to you, Cumby, but it was Westminster who started the Welsh Assembly, and now the Senate, and the Scottish Parliament. Yeah, we had a referendum in the 70s about a Scottish Parliament, and the government just ignored it. It was the will of the people. It was the will of the Scottish people. They said, "Oh, no, not enough people voted for it." True story. But yeah, they did finally get that in 1999, wasn't it? And I'd like to see more federalization of of the component parts of the United Kingdom, the 4 component parts. Maybe 5 if you want to include Cornwall. Maybe 6 if you want to include the People's Republic of Liverpool. Yeah, I'd like to see more in terms of devolution to regions, especially in the north, because obviously I've got a vested interest there as well. To make our own decisions on local matters. I'd like to see a lot more of that, but I've never been a revolutionary. I've never thought the best way to deal with this problem is to leave the EU or to break up the union or to go all out. I would much rather work together, but on reform rather than, I don't mean the party, I just mean actual reform, rather than revolution. And I'd like to see an English Parliament for English matters and a smaller British Parliament for British matters, which represents the 4 constituent parts of the UK a bit more equally than they're represented at the moment. I'd really like to see that. So in my view, we should have a Northern Ireland Assembly, the Senate in Wales, the Scottish Parliament, an English Parliament, and the House of Britain. And the House of Britain would be elected, be an upper chamber, and it would look after the whole, situation in the UK. Because it's not just the trains and shit, it's also postal services and defence and visas and passports and overseas aid and all this kind of stuff that is represented by the country as a whole. And so, that's just my take on it. And I know that you think differently, and that's fine. But the one thing I will say is that I can't quite believe that after... I just fell over. I can't quite believe that after everything that has been done to Scotland by England and arguably Wales, in terms of them being dragged out of the European Union against their express will. It was 60% of people in Scotland said they wanted to remain part of the European Union, and they were dragged out against their will. And their economy has suffered, and their whiskey trade has suffered. Like everything across the board has suffered as a result of Brexit. Their farmers, their salmon farmers, their fishermen, their fisher folk, all suffered. And yet, in polling, there's still not an overwhelming majority for independence. There's still hardly a majority for independence. Anyway, and I think, like with Brexit and getting back into the EU at some point, I think it's just going to have to. It's something that I think we should fight for and we should strive for. When talking about getting back into the EU specifically, and obviously in Wales, you'll be striving for an independent Wales, and I've got friends who will strive for an independent Scotland. And keep going. Don't let me stop you. And I'm not going to sneer. I'm not going to say, oh, it'll never work, because I think one day it might. But you got to get people on side. That's the difficult thing, because political will follows the people eventually. But begrudgingly, but it does follow the people. If you have an overwhelming majority who want to do something, even if it's something mad, it'll get done. Because that's what we live in. We live in a democracy of dickheads. Not you watching this, but there's a lot of people out there who I wouldn't trust them to tie their own fucking shoelaces, and they're deciding on UK fucking economic policy for the next 100 years. But there you go. And Kemi says the 2 countries were invited into this union, England and Scotland. The Irish and Britain's never had a choice. That is true. And Scotland, you could argue, I know you have to sort of squint when you say this, but it was the Scottish king who was asked, James, to come and be James the First. It was James the VII, wasn't it? James the VII was asked, was it 6th? 7th. He was asked to come and be king of England as well. And then 100 years later, we had the Acts of Union, but that's something separate. But so you could argue that the Scottish king conquered England. In which case, it's all Scotland's fault. Don't at me. I'm joking. But yeah, so interestingly enough, because James the Seventh, was it James the Seventh and first, was it? And then James the Second was James the Eighth of Scotland and second of England. I'm gonna have to look this up now. James V11. Oh, C11. What the hell? Oh, the V and the C are next to each other. It would help if I look at my keyboard, wouldn't it? James the First. Okay, right. So he's sixth. Okay, so James the Sixth of Scotland became James the First of England. James the Seventh of Scotland became James the Second. So he was the seventh of Scotland. He was the second of England. And here's the thing, right? This is kind of weird. So, because Scotland had never had a Queen Elizabeth, when Queen Elizabeth became the monarch, some post boxes that had ER2 written on them in Scotland got defaced because they were like, we haven't had an ER1. Who's this ER2 you're talking about? She should be Elizabeth II of England and Elizabeth I of Scotland, right? So Scotland gets to have their own Virgin Queen, right? So there was a decision made by the Churchill government, I think, at the time, that whichever ordinal number comes higher is the ordinal number that will be adopted for England and Scotland, right? The reason why I'm getting to this is that if King George, the little kid who's the eldest kid of William, is he? When he has his kids, if he calls his eldest child William, if it's a boy, calls them William. Sorry, James, not William. if he calls him James, that monarch in 50, 60 years' time wouldn't be James the Third. It would actually be James the Eighth. So yeah, maybe that's why they haven't called any kids James recently. So there you go. Fudgem Stuck says 1.3 million people in Scotland voted leave, but only 800,000 in Wales. Given that it was total number of votes that counted, a bit unfair that blame Wales for dragging Scotland out the EU. Yes, I know. It was more England. And Fudgem Stuck, as I'm sure you'll agree with me, it was English people who just happened to live in Wales who voted for it, like retired people who had left beautiful Scunthorpe and gone to live in Wales to mess that place up instead. So yes, you are right. Scott should blame the Darien adventure for why their nobles sold out. Yes, but also Bowler's cough. There's also the fact that when that happened, the Darien misadventure, the English in the Caribbean were told not to help out the refugees from the disastrous colony. So that happened. And Kemi says, I fail to understand how people in England can be for the deoccupation of other nations by occupiers, yet still hold the position of it's okay to occupy the Celtic nations and take their resources. Okay, it's a good argument. It's a good argument. It is. But then, we've had lots of Scottish prime ministers. We've had lots of Welsh prime ministers. Famously, who was prime minister 100 bloody years ago? Who was prime minister during World War II? I've got his fucking name now. I'm gonna look it up. Walpole. No, it wasn't him. What's his fucking name? British PM World War II. Sorry about this. Not World War II. World War One. Bloody fuck. Someone's gonna tell me in the chat. David Lloyd George. Yeah. Born in Manchester, but to Welsh parents, and his first language was Welsh. English was his second language. But then you had people like Gordon Brown, Scottish. Tony Blair was born in Scotland. So it's not like what it was with the Empire, where you had these colonies where the local people really weren't in charge. They may have been told that they had some decision-making power over their own little area, perhaps, as administrators or something, but they didn't have any say over the United Kingdom. They didn't have any say over here. If you were a Kenyan chief, or you were living in what's now Nigeria, the Benin Kingdom, you weren't given any say over what happened in London. Whereas, arguably, if you're Welsh or Scottish, if you were completely shut out of the Westminster system, there was no Plaid Cymru, there was no SNP, there were no Scottish or Welsh MPs then, or Prime Ministers, I'd be like, yeah, okay, fair enough. But I don't think it's comparable in that way for that reason, because you can be born in Wales and still be Prime Minister. Whereas if you were born in Kenya 100 odd years ago, you definitely couldn't be Prime Minister of this country. If you were born in Guyana, if you were born in, I don't know, Tuvalu or somewhere, you definitely couldn't be Prime Minister of this country. You might not be born in Cymru, but Cymru can be born in you. David Lloyd George is Welsh, like Liz Saville Roberts, Plaid Cymru, Westminster leader, born in England, but as Welsh as they come. Yeah. That's what I said. His first language was Welsh. I'm not arguing with you. Lloyd George Asquith. Lloyd George Asquith. What a posh name. It's not the poshest name ever. Hello. I'm Hubert Asquith. Fucking hell. Kind of crazy. What was Asquith's first name? Herbert Henry Asquith. I mean, imagine just meeting someone like out and traveling somewhere. They turn up with with pith helmets on and fucking dressed like one of them loonies that you see, in the old fashion films. And you go, excuse me, are you British? And he's like, yeah, I am. And what's your name? It's Herbert Henry Asquith. You can't even say that in any other accent except a posh one. Anyway, right. Could the President of America belong to the Cherokee tribe? Yes. I mean, yes, they could. Absolutely, they could, because they were born in America. As long as they're over 35 years old, is it? And I was going to say don't have a criminal record, but that's never stopped anyone, has it? But yeah, nationalism in any form is arguably retrograde. Flag enthusiasm rarely ends well. See Brexit. I don't know, Nick, because the EU is made up of nations, and I don't mind people being proud of their country and proud of where they come from. But my take on it is, if you're going to take the pride in things that other people have done, you've also got to take the shame and pay the reparations for the stuff that other people have done from your country. So pay the fucking reparations, or at least invest in countries that we fucked over in the past. And give back the fucking treasures that we stole and hid in the fucking British Museum, half of which are not even on public display. They're hidden in a basement somewhere in the archives. You can't even see these things, these priceless, precious fucking jade masks from the Qing dynasty of China. Now we stole them fair and fucking square, mate. Let's keep them down in this fucking basement where no fucker gets to see them. So yeah. I think we can come to some agreement on all this in the end. But I'm going to fuck off now because I've yabbered on way too much. And it's 11 minutes past 1. And I'm sure you've got better things to do in the afternoon than argue with a excitable scouser on the internet. So I will return at 6 o'clock tonight. Me and Rach are going to be jumping down the rabbit hole together like Alice in Wonderland. And we'll be talking shit about bollocks. The show, but I mean, seriously, anything but politics. So we're just going to have a natter. We're not going to talk about nationalism. We're not going to talk about patriotism. We're not going to talk about devolution. We're not going to talk about evolution. Or maybe talk about evolution. We might talk a little bit about evolution. One angry pagan. Yeah. The other stuff, no politics. No politics. Strictly no politics from 6 till 7 tonight. So please join us for that. And in the meantime, I'll just say thank you so much for watching. Thanks for the super chat. It's very kind of you. Trigger in the cafefe there, which is bloody awesome. Thank you there to Di Stanton for that. Really appreciate it. And until next time, I see you until we meet again. I'll say hello, good evening, welcome, and goodbye.